We've all been there, feeling like we need to make some huge, dramatic change to get real results in our lives. But what if that's completely backwards? What if the key to an incredible transformation actually comes from the tiny, almost invisible choices we make every single day? Well, that's the big idea behind James Clear's massive bestseller, Atomic Habits. So let me ask you a kind of wild question. How in the world can you get 37 times better at something in just 1 year? I know, it sounds totally impossible. It sounds like one of those too good to be true promises. But here's the thing, it's not a trick, it's just math. And the answer is almost laughably simple, 1%. The whole secret is just getting 1% better each day. That's it. It's a change so small you probably wouldn't even notice it on any given Tuesday. But over time, whoa, it adds up to something truly incredible. And this is where you can really see the magic of compounding. If you get just 1% better every day for a year, you end up almost 38 times better than when you started. But look at the flip side. It's terrifying. If you get 1% worse each day, you basically shrink down to almost zero. This is exactly what Clear is talking about when he says that time just magnifies the tiny margin between success and failure. Which brings us to probably the most powerful metaphor in the whole book. You get how money grows with compound interest, right? Well, your habits work the exact same way. That tiny choice you make today might feel completely insignificant, but you let that compound for a few years, and it creates this massive gap between who you are and who you could have been. All right, so let's dig into this first big idea, the awesome power of that tiny 1%. It's really all about understanding why these small, atomic choices matter so much more than we think. And this isn't just some theory for James Clear. This was his actual lifeline. After a really bad baseball injury in high school left him with a serious head injury, he felt like his life was completely out of his hands. So he started small, super small. He focused on these tiny habits he could actually manage, like just making his bed every single morning and being super strict about getting enough sleep. These little acts helped him get a feeling of control back, and over the years, they compounded into unbelievable success.
Okay, so if these tiny habits are the key, where should we put our energy? This brings us to the next game-changing idea, focusing on systems instead of goals. And this is a huge mindset shift because we're always told to set these big, hairy, audacious goals. But Clear points out that's not what actually separates the winners from everyone else.
So what's the difference, really? Well, think of it this way. Your goal is the result you want, right? Like winning a championship. But the system is the process that gets you there. It's what you do at practice, day in and day out. I mean, every team in the league wants to win the championship. They all have the exact same goal. It's the daily system that makes all the difference.
And this quote just hits it right on the head. A goal is great for setting a direction, but it's the system that actually makes the progress happen. Since, both winners and losers often have the very same goals, it's the quality of your process that's going to decide where you end up.
But it goes even deeper than that. The real point of having a system isn't just about hitting a target. It's about building a new identity. So instead of focusing on what you want to achieve, you start focusing on who you want to become. And every single time you do that little habit, you're basically casting a vote for that new identity. So we know we need to build systems made of tiny habits. But to do that, we kind of have to look under the hood and see how habits actually work in our brains. We've got to decode this basic pattern that's running behind every single thing we do, good or bad. Turns out, every habit follows this really simple 4-step loop. First up, you've got the cue. That's the trigger, the thing that kicks it all off. That leads to the craving, which is the motivation, the why. The craving then drives the response. That's the actual habit itself. And finally, that response delivers a reward, which feels good and tells your brain, hey, let's do that again. And get this isn't something that just happens once in a while. This loop, cue, craving, response, reward, it's running constantly. It's an endless cycle that's active every single moment you're awake, building all the automatic behaviors that pretty much define your life. And most of the time, you don't even notice it's happening. So now that we've cracked the code on the habit loop, we can turn it into a super practical plan for making real change. Clear calls this the 4 laws of behavior change, and it's basically your toolkit for building the good habits you want and getting rid of the bad ones. The framework is so simple, it's brilliant. To build a good habit, you just apply one law to each step of that loop we just talked about. For the cue, you got to make it obvious. For the craving, make it attractive. For the response, you have to make it easy. And finally, for the reward, you make it satisfying. That's it. Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. And here's the really cool part. To break a bad habit, you just flip it. You do the exact opposite. You make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. By playing with these 4 simple levers, you can literally re-engineer your own behavior. Okay, I know that's the whole framework, and it can still feel like a lot, so where do you even begin? Honestly, if you only take away one single strategy from this whole thing, please make it this one, the 2-minute rule. It is the ultimate weapon against procrastination. The rule couldn't be simpler. When you start any new habit, you have to shrink it down so that it takes less than 2 minutes to do. Seriously, you're not trying to run the marathon on day 1, you're just trying to get really, really good at the starting line. So here's what that actually looks like. Your big goal to read 30 books a year, that just becomes read 1 page. That's it. Your goal to do yoga 5 days a week, that becomes take out my yoga mat. Sometimes just getting started is more than half the battle. And this is the real reason it's so powerful. You have to establish a habit before you can ever dream of improving it. So the first goal isn't to be a novelist. It's to be the kind of person who sits down and writes 1 sentence every day. The goal is just to master the art of showing up. And boom, that's how we tie it all back to that big idea of identity. Every single time you do your little 2-minute habit, reading that single page or just taking out the yoga mat, you are giving yourself real, tangible proof that you are that type of person. These tiny little votes are the very building blocks of the person you're becoming. So I'll leave you with this one final question to think about. It's not about some huge goal for next year. It's much simpler. It's about right now. What tiny 2-minute habit will you start today to cast a vote for the person you really want to be?